Hey Jim. Hey Jim, it's Mike. How you doing? I'm gonna take these off. I wear these because my ears ring bad enough as it is, and drumming makes it worse. But I can't hear myself talk with those things on. Anyway, I wanted to do a quick video with some thoughts and things to share with you on your new adventure of drumming. I think it's really exciting, and looking forward to seeing videos of what you're doing and everything. But just a few ideas and thoughts to share with you. Especially learning from mistakes I made. I still kick myself 45 years of drumming just mistakes I made at the beginning I could have easily corrected. And I'm going to start with a hi-hat. Now most people when you play, and most people you see play, and when you play you probably see people, they call it cross hand drumming. So your right hand is over your left, and that's fine. And I always thought, since that's the way everyone does it, it's kind of implied that's how you're supposed to do it, and it's the only way to do it. Well, I kick myself because it's not. While you're learning to play, with your right hand tapping on the hi-hat, as far as I'm concerned, you should also be playing with your left hand tapping on the hi-hat and your right hand on the snare. Should be learning those at the same time, and I wish I had, because I'm learning now. That's why I've got all these, this ride on the left and this closed hi-hat on the left that you saw in that other video, because I want to relearn that. When I lead with the left hand now, it's like when I'm playing, it's like a beginner play. It's ridiculous. I could have learned that when I was 15 years old and be playing with both. And the advantage that gives you, well, let me tell you about the disadvantage first. When I'm playing like this, cross-handed, my left hand is locked in, and it's very difficult to do accents on toms or other cymbals. So I have to come up and go over, or a lot of times you go like this, you lift this hand and to hit a cymbal or something. But when you're leading with your left hand, now your right hand is free to do accents on the toms and do a crash and whatever you want. You're free to do all kinds of accents. And at the beginning, you may not necessarily take advantage of that, but as you get going, you will be glad you did, so that you can take advantage of that. So my first advice is to learn from the mistake I made as a young drummer, is to learn to play both cross-handed and what they call open-handed, where you're leading with your left hand. And to develop both of those at the same time, so you can go back and forth. And some of the interesting drummers to study, if you look on YouTube, Simon Phillips does that, Billy Cobham does that, and Steve Smith from Journey does that. If you watch them play, you'll see them leading both with the left and the right hand on the hi-hat and on rides. They have ride cymbals on the left as well as on the right, and it gives them so much more. It makes them more dynamic, gives them so many more options of things you can do. Continuing on the hi-hat, this is more of a practical tip. But when the way your hi-hat, your top hi-hat, the way you mount that in that little holder, you've got the threaded kind of a bolt on each end, and you're tightening that down. There's a little piece of felt in between that touches against the cymbal. For many years, I would crank that up as tight as I could get it. And it's only in the last 10 or 15 years that I learned, almost by accident, to back that off a little so that the cymbal can kind of slide around like this in that holder, and your hi-hat's going to sound a whole lot better, in my experience anyway. The other thing with the hi-hat is when you're playing with a closed hi-hat, my instinct was always I'm playing with a closed hi-hat, I'm going to push down with my left foot and really close it, really clamp it shut. And that really chokes the sound of your hi-hat. So experiment and find that sweet spot where you're holding it down with your left foot just enough to close the hi-hat, but not so much that you're clamping it shut and wrecking the tonality of it. So it's something to experiment with. What else? I think we're done on the hi-hat. I wanted to show you how I learned to do a roll, a single stroke roll. And I'm not that good at it. My left hand, I really have to warm up to do it, but a single stroke roll will be something like, and that's not a very tight one, but you get the idea, a single stroke roll. The way I discovered to do that, I just found that on my own, is to do four notes quickly like this. Just do that. And then once you get that initial 4, do 2 sets of that back to back like this. And once you can do 2 sets of that back to back, try 3. And once you can do 3 like that back to back, now just try to do a single stroke roll. Do those 6, those 3 patterns, and then just go from there into a roll where you're just rolling it. And that's how I got to where I could do a single stroke roll. And I'm crusty as hell on it now, but when I was younger, I could do a halfway decent single stroke roll. From there, based on that same pattern, they do what you call a sweep. And it's really easy and it sounds really good. So, early in the game, if you want to be able to show people something that sounds good, that's not terribly hard, you do what's called a sweep. The sweep is that same thing, four notes like that, but you're doing it across the set. So you're going. Then you speed it up. And then if you want to put like a bass drum beat in between there, it's kind of slowed down, but now you can really experiment with that. It gives you a lot of things to build on. So just that sweep. And that's just snare first, second, third tom. Right hand on the snare, left hand on the first tom, right hand on the second tom, left hand on the floor tom. Hopefully the camera is going to give you the angle on that. What else? And I've got a broken bass drum head too. Just did that today. So it doesn't sound right. But anyway, another variation on a sweep would be to go right hand on the snare, left hand on the first tom or second. I usually do first. And then you hit the bass drum, and then right hand on the floor tom. It sounds complicated, but it's really not. So it's the same. It sounds like the same sweep we did earlier, but it's one less note, but it sounds just as good. So there's a sweep, and there's a couple ways to do it, and you can use other toms too to mix things up and experiment. Always experiment. And then going from that gets you into the triplet, because it's a variation on the triplet, and there's a lot you can do with the triplet. And triplets sound really cool. There's a little bit of a learning curve on a triplet, but once you get it, it sounds great, and it really gives you something fun to do, and that sounds good with your drumming. And that's going to be something like this. And that's a sloppy triplet. But the way to do that is just like that sweep I showed you, but you go from the floor tom back to the snare. And as you get comfortable with that, you speed it up, and then you can go, and now it's sloppy as hell. And you do that, that's like 3 times around with it. That's like a Neil Peart move if you like Rush. He used to do that in the early days. But he was doing with the double bass, which would be quads, the same thing but with quads, which I don't know how sloppy this is going to sound. And it's not going to sound right with this broken bass drum head, but yeah, it sounds like hell. Yeah, that sounds terrible, but you get the idea. And at some point, if you decide to explore a double pedal, I highly encourage you to. They're an awful lot of fun, even though that sounded like hell right there. Another variation on the triplet is just off the snare and the first tom. Is you're going to go 1 2 3 1 2 3. So one on the tom. And the way you start that is just a triplet on the snare. 1 2 3 1 2 3. And then you just start doing every other on the mounted tom. See, I'm so rusty. And then once you get that down, then you can mix it up with other toms. And you get the bass drum involved. Well, that sounds crappy as hell. You can either do like a triplet, including the floor tom, including the bass drum, or you can do a anyway, you get the idea. But that can be an awful lot of fun, and a lot of ways you can build off of that. Also, that video I sent you with those floor toms things, that's a very powerful thing he showed there. I wish I'd learned that when I was younger. But those just a couple basic things he shows you at the beginning, if you can just get that, the rest can come later. You can build on, but that basic thing he showed you with the toms and the bass drum, you can build on that and do all kinds of variations. So I highly encourage you to try to do something with that, because there's some powerful stuff he showed you, and he showed you as you grow into it, there's all the different things you can do off of that basic pattern. And the last thing I'm going to show you is tuning drums. And tuning drums is not my strength. I'm not the great tuner of drums. But the secret, such as it is, that I've been able to do, and the only drum you can really see the surface of on this video frame is this floor tom. But basically what you do, you take the bottom head off, and you loosen the head so it's floppy. And you tighten it so now the drum is just barely tight. All around looks pretty much even. And then you go around, and the way to test the tension of each lug is you put your finger in the middle and you tap each lug about an inch in. And you're looking to have the same tone as you tap next to each lug. That tells you that they're all tuned about the same. And at this point, it's tuned just barely enough, that the head is tight, just barely tight. And then from there, once you've got that, then you turn either a half a turn or a full turn or 2 turns or whatever it is, or a quarter turn. But just make a mental note, I'm going to do a quarter turn on each lug. And you do it opposite each other like you would when you're doing lug nuts on a car. And so let's say you've got it one full turn on each one, and you've gone around and checked and make sure that each one has the same tone. Then you put the bottom head on, and you do the same thing. And there's all kinds of schools of thought. Some people like to turn a half turn or a full turn tighter on the bottom head than the top head, or looser on the bottom head. I like to keep it about the same. And I make a note, like let's say I've got this top head one full turn above where it's just barely tight, and then I get it so they sound the same. And then I do the same on the bottom, one full turn above, just barely being tight. And that gets you in the ballpark with the drum, because if I've got the top and the bottom tuned the same, I feel that the drum is in tune with itself. And you can experiment from there, having the top head tighter or the bottom head tighter, or there's a whole school of thought and philosophy around drum tuning, and I'm not that great at it. Some people will even detune one lug, especially on the snare, to try to get the ringing out of it, and that's where these gels come in for me, is to take the ringing down. Yeah, and like we talked about, the gels are fun, and the gels you can put like on the side of the shells too, for your granddaughter. She'll probably enjoy that, having the gels, holiday gels on the outside of her drums. So I'm sure she'll get a real kick out of that. Was there anything else I had in my mind what I was hoping to try to say? I think that's it. But if I think of any more, I'll make another video. But I wish you the very best on your drumming adventure. And please keep me posted with videos, and I'll try to do the same. And yeah, happy drumming.